Discover the incredible secrets of how medieval soldiers survived 100 coldest nights in castles. Ethan's heart raced as he turned the pages of the dusty, ancient diary he'd stumbled upon in his grandfather's attic. The brittle leather cover felt rough against his fingers, but the words within held the promise of adventure. Tales of soldiers huddled in cold stone castles, battling freezing winters alongside their comrades, stirred a fire in his own spirit. He could almost hear the echoing clang of armor and smell the smoky fires burning to keep the cold at bay. The stories his grandfather shared rushed back to him, of resilience, unity, and the bonds formed in the toughest times. These were not just words, they were lifelines, bringing hope to a boy facing his own battles in Pine Hollow. The quiet town brought its own winter chill, not just from the falling snow, but from old social divides. Families like Ethan's, who worked tirelessly to make ends meet, felt the biting cold of neglect in a community ruled by the affluent. Skepticism met his dreamy plans for a grand reenactment, an effort to bridge the rift with laughter, history, and unity. At first, every knock on a neighbor's door brought doubt. Why would they want to relive the past, they asked. But Ethan bore the torch of his grandfather's legacy, determined to breathe new life into the community with camaraderie. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Snow fell harder, each flake like a whisper from the past, urging Ethan to fight against the rising tide of doubt. He envisioned a townspeople gathered, sharing stories of their ancestors, united in laughter and gratitude, and healing the invisible cracks that gaped between them. A glimmer of hope flickered in his heart, but was quickly snuffed out by the fierce storm that rolled in one fateful evening. As the wind howled outside, Ethan sensed fear rising among the neighbors. Fear of the unknown, fear of reaching out, fear of unity. Could they come together to face the raging storm and the even nearer danger, their prejudices? He remembered the words from the diary, how the soldiers had faced storms of snow and ice, yet stood shoulder to shoulder. If they could endure, he murmured to himself, lifting his chin with determination. As the streets of Pine Hollow were smothered under a blanket of white, he gathered every ounce of courage he had. The blizzard was a reflection of their own internal war, and he knew he couldn't fight it alone. It was time to rally the townsfolk, to break through the silence of winter with the warmth of shared stories and laughter. With every knock on the doors, every call, he felt the weight of the past pressing against him. In that moment of rising doubt, he could almost hear his grandfather's voice in his ear, urging him onward. And then, with a sudden twist of fate, a local historian appeared at the community center, curious about the buzz Ethan had created. Hope ignited. It was a chance. Would this be the spark to ignite unity in Pine Hollow despite the storm, or would fear and division freeze their progress? As the night deepened and the winds howled, the stage was set for a dramatic showdown between indifference and heart. The town was on the brink, and Ethan, against the backdrop of a raging storm, held the key to their redemption. What would they choose? As Ethan stood in the flickering light of the community center, the storm raged outside, echoing the turmoil in his heart. He scanned the room, his wide eyes hopeful, but not blind to the unease cloaked over the townsfolk gathered before him. Each face carried its own story of struggle, and the weight of their shared silence wrapped around them like the snow that fell in deep drifts outside. The historian, Mrs. Hargrove, had a spark in her eye when she stepped forward. "Ethan," she began, her voice warm yet commanding, "I've heard whispers of your reenactment plan, and I believe in the power of stories. We can bring the past to life, show them that unity isn't just an old tale. It's a living, breathing thing. But we need time to prepare. Time. It felt like a commodity they never had enough of. Outside, the storm howled, but inside, Ethan felt a tension that was thicker than snow in the air. He knew he had to harness the energy, to channel their apprehension into something meaningful. "If we're going to do this," he declared, gripping the edge of the makeshift podium, "let's share our own stories. We all have something to contribute. Everyone's voice matters." The murmurs in the room swelled, uncertainty dancing with excitement. One by one, the residents of Pine Hollow shifted, glancing at each other in disbelief. This wasn't just about medieval knights anymore. This was about them, about their lives intertwined with generations past. Ethan's heart raced with each passing moment as he saw the walls beginning to crack. A man named Mr. Wilkins, an older gentleman known for his stern demeanor, slowly raised his hand. Bursting with what felt like a wave of courage, he stood up. "My grandmother told stories of when our family first came to this town. We faced hatred, just like we do now, but we survived, and then we thrived together. It was the community that saved us." Hushed gasps rippled through the crowd. The charm of the old stories began to take hold, igniting a spark of connection. One after another, neighbors shared tales punctuated with laughter and tears, of love lost, victories won, and the shared humanity that resonated centuries apart. They were not just characters in a history book. They were living, feeling people connected by a fragile thread of history. Ethan watched, his heart pounding with hope. "This is it," he thought. "This is the moment we can rise above." But just as quickly as hope surged, doubt lingered like the chilling draft sweeping through the hall. Could he keep this momentum alive? Would each person hold on tight to their newfound purpose, or would they retreat into their corners once the storm passed? As the stories flowed freely, Mrs. Hargrove turned to Ethan, a knowing look passing between them. "We can turn this night into something more, a gathering that energizes not just the spirit, but also plants the seeds for our reenactment. What if we hold a bake sale and a storytelling night to gather interest and funds?" Ethan nodded, his mind whirling with possibilities. This was the light they needed to navigate the chilling storms that threatened their unity. But was it enough? And would they act, or would they let uncertainty bind them again? The night wore on, laughter and tears mingling with the wind's howl outside. As they shared stories and laughter, the darkness outside felt less ominous. Yet within Ethan, a heartbeat of anxiety remained. The task ahead was monumental, and he felt the weight of his community's hopes resting squarely on his shoulders. Will they trust me? Will they risk their hearts to come together? Ethan glanced at the faces around him, the flickers of determination igniting beneath the layers of doubt. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, prepared to lead them toward the light of their shared histories. But first, he needed to confront the shadows lingering in the hearts of the very people he sought to unite. Would this first step ignite a blaze, or merely smolder into ash? The answer was still unwritten, but Ethan sensed he was on the cusp of a powerful transformation. What truth would emerge when the storm finally calmed? Ethan took a moment, grounding himself in the energy of the room. The faces around him, lit by the soft glow of the overhead lights, were no longer just a collection of townspeople, but a tapestry of their shared experience. He sensed an awakening, a delicate spark that might just ignite a flame. "Let's not skip over our fears," he said. "We've all felt them, but every time we face something difficult together, we find a way through." He glanced at Mrs. Hargrove, who nodded encouragingly. A few members of the crowd shuffled closer, motivated by his words. "Remember the blizzard last winter? We banded together to help those who were stranded. That's what community means." Impressed murmurs rippled through the room, and Ethan felt the pull. "Imagine our reenactment! We could not only tell the stories of our town, but show how resilience and unity, the very traits that shaped our history, still thrive right here and now." As he spoke, he noticed a woman at the back of the room, her fingers twisted nervously in her lap. It was Clara, a single mother who had recently moved from the city, trying to find her place in Pine Hollow. He could see her struggle mirrored in the eyes of a few others, reflecting the doubt and hesitance that still lingered like a haze. "Clara," he began gently, ensuring his words reached her, "I know you've faced challenges moving here, and I'd love for you to share your story with us." The room grew silent, anticipation hanging in the air. Clara hesitated, but then took a deep breath, her eyes lighting as she stood. "I felt so out of place since I arrived. My life feels so chaotic, and I never quite know if I'll fit in." Her voice wavered, revealing the vulnerability beneath. "But hearing all of you sharing your stories, it inspires me. I want to be part of this, to help others find strength in their struggles." As she spoke, soft smiles spread through the crowd, an invitation that sparked warmth. Her words resonated deeply, striking chords in the hearts of those who felt isolated, reinforcing that their experiences were valid and shared. Ethan's heart swelled. There was something profoundly transformative in allowing vulnerability to flourish, and he saw the group begin to weave tighter together, closing the gaps left by doubt. The storm outside was fierce, but in this room, hope crackled like electricity. "Let's organize that bake sale and storytelling night. Let's invite everyone, friends or newcomers, whoever wants to connect over food, laughter, and a shared experience," he urged, the fire of determination coloring his words. The crowd began to murmur in agreement, excitement building like an unwavering tide washing away fear. Ideas flew around the room, creating a buzz that transformed their anxieties into plans. Clara's story ignited discussions about recipes passed down through generations, and laughter echoed as Mr. Wilkins recounted the hilarious mishaps of past holiday gatherings. Ethan couldn't believe how quickly they flipped a moment of tension into one filled with hope. Every shared laugh, every idea brought out, knitted them closer. Yet, as he looked around, he caught sight of a few hesitant expressions. The shadows of doubt still whispered in corners, reminding him that while they were progressing, not everyone was on board. As the laughter and excitement flourished, the enormity of their task loomed larger. "Can this truly heal us?" he pondered, heart pushing against the unknowns lingering just beneath the surface. Just then, the wind howled louder, rattling the windows and snapping him back to reality. A flicker of fear surged through the crowd, but this time, instead of pulling away, they huddled together, drawing strength from one another's presence. Ethan felt the weight what lay ahead settle on his shoulders. "Let's do this together," he declared, more to himself than anyone else. "No matter what storm we face, we will find our way through." But as hope filled the space, would they find the strength needed to unify? Or would the darkness of their fears pull them apart when it mattered most? The storm had calmed for now, but it was just a whisper compared to the thunder that awaited. What awaited when the tales were shared and the walls began to tremble? The chatter in the room swelled with excitement, a vibrant tapestry of voices weaving plans and dreams. Ethan stood at the center, a steady calm amid the rising anticipation. Clara's vulnerability had cracked open a door, and now others were stepping through, ready to share their experiences. He could feel a shift in the air. It was tangible, almost electric. "Let's do more than just tell stories," shouted Mr. Wilkins, his face alight with enthusiasm. "Let's make sure everyone has something they want to share. Recipes, tales from the past, even memories of moments that made them feel at home. This isn't about one of us, it's about all of us." A ripple of agreement rolled through the crowd, and an older man in the corner, Mr. Thompson, raised his hand. "What about our gardens? We can create a community contest. Best garden story, best recipe." A chuckle erupted. "Let's show everyone what Pine Hollow can do with a little love." Laughter danced across the room, and Ethan watched as Clara beamed, her earlier hesitations fading away. Just then, a little girl named Lucy, who had been listening wide-eyed, piped up. "I can tell a ghost story from my grandma. Oh, and how about we make a giant banner to make it colorful and fun?" The floodgates had opened. The ideas poured like rain after a long drought. Each suggestion added another layer of hope, and the space between them shrank. The laughter, the shouts of joy, the voices of the young and old mingled, creating a beautiful symphony of community spirit. "All right then," Ethan said as he clapped his hands together, suddenly aware of the responsibility that hung in the air. "Let's make a plan. When and where will we host this storytelling event? I think the community center's gym would be perfect." With that, a wave of energy surged throughout the crowd, and they began to organize themselves into groups. Everyone was eager to take part. Clara teamed up with a few others to coordinate the bake sale, while Lucy rallied her friends to gather stories of their family traditions. Yet, amid the buzz of excitement, Ethan's heart beat a little faster. The whispers of doubt still lingered like shadows at the corners of his mind. What if the stories they shared brought out old wounds that made it difficult to come together? What if some voices still went unheard? Just as he wrestled with these thoughts, a sudden crash of thunder drew the room's attention. The electricity flickered momentarily, causing everyone to hold their breath. It was a reminder that the storm outside was still very real, and while they were buzzing with hope, nature still had a say. "Just a little thunder," Mrs. Hargrove said, her cheerful tone cutting through the unease. "It's just the storm reminding us that life is loud, messy, and unpredictable, just like our stories." Her laughter broke the tension, and the room erupted in chuckles again, easing the lingering unease. But deep down, Ethan couldn't shake off the feeling that they had only begun to scratch the surface of their true journey. The storm wasn't just outside, it was within each story they were about to share. What if uncovering those truths uncovered more than they anticipated? As the laughter continued, he felt a resolve burning inside him. They had to be prepared for whatever lay ahead. They were on the brink of something powerful. But just how much strength could they muster when facing their truths? The walls around him felt both protective and fragile, just like the community they were building. With every shared story, they risked revealing their joys and fears side by side. Would it draw them closer together or splinter them apart? That question hung heavy in the air, echoing through the hearts of those gathered. What stories would be unearthed? What truths would come to light? And ultimately, could they unite as one to brave the storms ahead? The gym of the community center transformed into a bustling hive of activity. Tables were adorned with rolls of bright paper, colorful markers, and sprigs of flowers collected from gardens around Pine Hollow. Laughter floated in the air, threads of stories weaving together amidst the aroma of baked goods beginning to fill the room. Ethan surveyed the scene, a sense of warmth sliding into his chest. Clara clapped her hands, rallying the volunteers around the bake sale. Lucy and her friends colored giant sheets of paper with glitter and crayons, their giggles punctuating the serious work of creativity. It was a playful energy, bubbling, alive, each person's enthusiasm lighting up the space. "Okay," Clara announced, bouncing on her toes. "Let's get this bake sale organized. We need signs and more cookies." Ethan walked over, putting his arm around her shoulder. "You're a natural, Clara. This is really coming together." But Clara's smile faltered for just a moment. What if people come to share their stories and it gets too real? Her brow knitted with worry. "Then we just listen," he replied softly, holding her gaze. "Sometimes sharing is how we heal." She nodded, but the hesitation lingered. Shadows of the storm outside electrified their air, reminding Ethan that vulnerability wasn't always met with kindness. Just then, the gym doors swung open, allowing in a fresh rush of wind and the murmurs from outside. One by one, folks began to huddle in, looking skeptical at first, but gradually relaxing. Under the chaos around them, Mr. Thompson, with his worn cap and cheerful grin, popped over with an armful of homegrown tomatoes. "Who wants to tell their story?" he called out. There was a cheer, and more people stepped forward. Ethan felt a swell of hope. Each story was a potential bridge to understanding, but also a potential risk. As the hours pooled into a vibrant afternoon, the chatter turned to shy whispers when Lucy began her ghost story, all eyes on her sparkling imagination. "And then the ghost just wanted a friend!" she exclaimed, and laughter erupted. While others continued to share, Ethan's attention drifted. He found himself thinking about how stories felt like waves. Some would crash and break, while others would gently roll onto shore. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and a quieter tension fell among the group. It was like nature itself was holding its breath. Ethan caught Clara's gaze, and the unspoken question hung heavy. What if the storm brought more than thunder? What if buried memories emerged, unsettling the peace they had begun to create? The crowd resumed buzzing, yet Ethan felt like a piece of himself was tethered to the heartbeat of the storm outside. He stepped away to take a breath, moving toward a window. Raindrops fell in rapid succession against the glass, each hit a reminder of the emotions swirling within. "Everything okay?" A familiar voice pulled him back. It was Mrs. Hargrove, her warm eyes searching his. "Just wondering if we're ready for the stories," he admitted, feeling the weight of the collective uncertainty. "We're always ready for the stories," she reassured him. "They are what make us who we are. Just remember, it's about connection." Her hand rested reassuringly on his arm. "You think so?" he asked, seeking affirmation in her steady gaze. "Absolutely. That's the magic of this moment. We're all here together." As she walked away to help Lucy hang the banner, Ethan's heart raced. Could they truly embrace the power of their stories, facing what might surface together? But just as the laughter began to return, a blood-curdling scream cut through the air, causing everyone to freeze. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. What had just happened? "Did you hear that?" Clara whispered, eyes wide. The room's energy shifted like the wind, anticipation curling around them. What awaited them in the storm? Would they be ready when the true tales began to rise? The scream hung in the air, a jagged sound that shattered the comforting atmosphere they had built. Ethan's heart raced, and he glanced around the gym, searching for the source. Faces turned pale, whispers rustled through the crowd like leaves caught in a sudden gust. "What was that?" Clara asked, voice barely above a whisper, her eyes wide with fear. Ethan swallowed hard, fighting the urge to bolt toward the noise. "I don't know. Let's check it out together." They moved toward the gym's far side, where a huddle of adults gathered, voices abuzz. As they pushed through the crowd, Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. Was it a child playing a prank? Or was someone truly in distress? Soon they reached the group, and the sight before them sent chills down Ethan's spine. An older woman, Mrs. Davis, sat on the floor, her face drawn and pale, clutching her chest. Someone knelt beside her, a look of panic in their eyes as they tried to comfort her. "Someone call for help!" shouted Mr. Thompson, his usual jovial tone replaced by urgency. Ethan knelt beside Mrs. Davis, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Mrs. Davis, can you hear me? You're going to be okay." She looked up at him, her eyes glassy, and he felt a surge of helplessness. "Ethan, please, my heart, it's—" Her words broke into wheezing breaths, and Ethan felt the room spin. Stories were meant to connect them, not pull them into chaos. Clara was beside him, holding Mrs. Davis's hand tightly. "You're safe, Mrs. Davis. Just breathe with us," she encouraged, her voice steady, though fear quivered beneath the surface. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance, a siren call that mixed with the atmospheric tension in the gym. People started to create space, parting so first responders could maneuver through. Ethan's heart sank, realizing that in this moment of connection, a thread of vulnerability lay exposed. As the medics arrived, he stepped back, allowing the professionals to take over. He caught sight of Clara, her brow furrowed with concern. "I can't believe this is happening," she murmured, looking at the chaos around them. Neither could he. Just moments before, their laughter and creativity had filled the room. Now, a powerful reminder of mortality and the very human experience of fear hung thick in the air. "Let's gather everyone together," Ethan suggested, hoping to restore some sense of calm. "We can share some stories, a little distraction." Clara nodded. "Good idea. Stories have a way of helping us heal, right?" He forced a smile, even if it was a small one. "Exactly. Let's bring people back to what we were doing." As they began to coax the crowd back together, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. But beneath that glimmer, a heavy weight still settled in his heart. What else lay buried beneath laughter and smiles? Was darkness lurking, waiting to spill into their fragile moment? With Clara by his side, he began to recount a silly, light-hearted memory from Pine Hollow, hoping to coax laughter back into the room. As people slowly gathered, their expressions shifting from worry to curiosity, he glanced out the window again. The storm seemed to rage stronger, clouds growling ominous threats. Somewhere behind that storm was the truth, waiting to be uncovered. Would they find resilience through the stories shared? Or would the secrets of their pasts rise, uncovering raw emotions they weren't prepared for? As the first giggles erupted, something deep within Ethan stirred. The world outside felt like it mirrored their own stormy hearts. What lay beyond the laughter, he wondered? What stories yearned to be told, hidden just beneath the surface? Ethan's voice rose above the whispers, pulling the crowd into the warmth of shared memories. He recalled a time when he and Clara had attempted to start a bake sale for their school's art program. Flour had exploded everywhere, creating a cloud of white that clung to their clothes. The moment felt like ages ago now, as laughter broke through the tension like sunlight piercing a stormy sky. "Do you remember the chaos we created, Clara?" he said, a smile finally breaking through the worry etched in his features. "We managed to turn that kitchen into more of a battlefield than a bakery." Clara chuckled, her eyes shining with a hint of mischief. "I can still hear Mrs. Thompson's voice yelling at us to keep the flour in the bowl. But I think we invented flower painting instead." Slowly, the scattered faces around them lit up, some nodding, others sharing knowing glances. They were starting to loosen up, the weight of the moment lightly lifting. Laughter echoed in the gym, filling the corners with a warmth that banished the chill brought by the recent panic. Ethan could feel the tension beginning to thaw, but he also sensed the fear lingering right beneath the surface. As he moved through the crowd, he recounted more tales of carefree childhood moments. Each narrative formed a thread, weaving a tapestry of resilience that bound the listeners together. Clara interjected with her own stories, each one a brushstroke on the canvas of their collective experience. But just as the mood brightened, Ethan noticed a familiar face in the crowd, a shadow looming behind the laughter, the stern yet compassionate expression of Principal Hargrove. He crossed his arms, surveying the room with a seriousness that made Ethan's heart stumble. "Ethan," she called out, beckoning him closer. The laughter around him faded as her gaze landed on him. "Can we talk?" His stomach turned. What did she want? "Sure," he replied, stepping away from the group. Clara shot him a concerned look, but remained where she was, not wanting to disrupt him. "Are you okay?" she mouthed silently, concern etched on her features. "I don't know," he whispered back, and then he faced Principal Hargrove, whose expression was a mix of worry and purpose. "Ethan, it's crucial we address what just happened," she began, her voice firm. "Mrs. Davis, she's a beloved member of our community. This could shake people more than we realize." "I know," Ethan replied, anxiety seeping into his words. "But we were trying to bring everyone together to help ease the shock." "And it's good you're doing that," she said, softening slightly. "But we might need to be honest with them, talk about what just happened. This isn't just about storytelling, it's about connection in difficult times. We need to create a safe space for everyone to share, to grieve if they need to." Ethan's heart sank. Could this really help them? Would sharing every unspeakable fear and vulnerability pull them together or unravel them completely? As he glanced back at the group, the laughter slowly waned, making space for whispers and uncertainty again. "Ethan, we must prepare ourselves. Principal Hargrove said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. It's not only about celebrating strength, but also acknowledging our fears, our losses. He took a deep breath. The weight of her words settled heavily on him. Was he ready for that? Was anyone? As Ethan stood there, wrestling with the decision, he noticed Clara's expression transform, her eyes wide with understanding. She had been listening. She knew they had to adjust their course, but would everyone be willing to open their hearts to the truth? The storm outside howled like a feral creature, rattling the windows of the gym. It felt like a warning, a reminder that life's chaos was just beginning to unfurl. What lay ahead? As he faced the room again, uncertainty coiled in Ethan's chest. He had to decide. Would they continue sharing laughter, or would they pull back the curtains on deeper emotions? The answer felt like a precipice. One step too far could send everything tumbling down. Maybe we need to dig deeper, Ethan murmured, resolving to find the courage to face whatever was hidden beneath the surface. And as he turned to the crowd, he realized the next chapter was just beginning to unfold. What secrets would come to light when they dared to face the truth together? Ethan faced the crowd, heart racing, as the laughter faded entirely. The burden of expectation weighed heavily on him. Everyone was looking to him for guidance, for reassurance. He scanned the room, taking in familiar faces marked by anxiety and uncertainty. Principal Hargrove stepped back, allowing him to reclaim the center. "Hey, everyone," Ethan began, his voice wavering slightly until he steeled himself. "Can we just talk for a minute?" The crowd shifted. A few people exchanged worried glances, while others looked outright lost. Clara stepped closer to the front, her supportive smile doing wonders to calm his nerves. "Right now," he continued, "we're all feeling something heavy. What happened with Mrs. Davis," his voice caught, "it's hard to process." The murmurs intensified. Ethan could feel the ripple of pain and fear move through the room like a gust of wind. "Sometimes sharing those feelings makes us feel less alone," he added. "Let's not focus on being strong. Let's just be honest." As if prompted by an unseen cue, a voice broke through the crowd. "But what if it hurts too much?" It was Mark, a quiet student who often avoided drawing attention to himself. A tension hung in the air, thick and palpable. Ethan nodded, recognizing what Mark was expressing. "It might hurt. It might feel like a weight we can't lift, but hiding from it doesn't make it go away. We owe it to ourselves and to Mrs. Davis to share how we feel." The room fell silent. Was this really the path they needed to take? The kind of vulnerability needed was daunting, and Ethan wondered if they were truly ready for this. Clara's eyes sparkled with determination. "We're all in this together. If anyone wants to share, I'm right here," she reassured. Ethan drew on her strength. "Exactly," he said. "No judgment here, just honesty." With that, he took a deep breath and stepped forward to invite whoever felt brave enough to speak. "I'll start," he said boldly, heart pounding. It's hard to focus on anything else right now. The thought of losing someone so important, it's kind of crushing. It's scary." A slow wave of nods cascaded through the room. Others began to murmur softly, sharing similar feelings. The ignited bravery forged a connection, and suddenly a girl named Lily stood up. "My mom adored Mrs. Davis," she started, her voice trembling slightly. "I thought she'd always be at our school, always smiling. I don't want to believe she's really gone." The collective sigh that followed was almost heartbreaking. The pain echoed back to those who had once shared laughter. As Ethan watched others slowly rise, first a boy, then another girl, raw emotions poured into the space around him. Stories of loss threaded together, interlaced with memories that brought both warmth and sorrow. The camaraderie between them knitted tighter, like fabric, stitching together shared experiences that had once seemed solitary. Yet, beneath that sense of unity loomed an undercurrent of apprehension. Was this healing they were feeling, or would it open wounds too deep to heal?
Clara motioned for everyone to listen as she began to share a memory of Mrs. Davis that brought both tears and smiles. The fragility of their emotions hung like a veil above them, shimmering with the truth that none of them were alone in this fight. As the stories unfolded, Ethan felt the connection deepen, but also sensed another storm brewing, one of feelings too buried, too intense to reveal. The truth might carve its path through laughter, but it could also expose fears that had lingered too long. At that moment, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that there were deeper secrets still to uncover, ones that lingered in shadows of the heart, waiting for the perfect moment to rise from their hiding places. Would they be ready for those revelations when they surfaced? Ethan steadied himself, aware that the most intense moments were still ahead, and as stories unfolded, he knew the path they chose could reshape everything. What other truths were waiting beneath the surface, just out of reach? Ethan watched as Clara shared her memory, her voice trembling but unwavering. The laughter she remembered, a picnic in the park, Mrs. Davis's infectious smile echoing in their minds, filled the room. It reminded everyone of the warmth of connection during this chilling time. Others joined in, a hesitant sharing that morphed into an outpouring
of stories. It felt like seeing the sun break through thick clouds after a long storm. But as each voice added to the chorus of sorrowful memories, Ethan could sense shadows creeping in. Each tale was a reminder of their own fragility. Each confession sent a wave of vulnerability through the space. He could feel a brewing storm, a tension that could either unite them or scatter them into deeper silence. And then a whisper spoke up from the back. It was Lucy, a soft-spoken girl who had often been overlooked. "Mrs. Davis she was my safe space," she stammered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "She would always listen. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye." The room held its breath, the gravity of Lucy's words sinking in. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Her pain was raw and unfiltered, and it laid bare the reality of their situation, a truth they had yet to fully face. How many more felt the absence of not just a teacher, but someone who made their days a little brighter? "She made learning fun," another student chimed in, her voice breaking. "Now everything feels dull and pointless. I thought she'd always be there, like a lighthouse, guiding us." Ethan felt the weight of their collective mourning thickening the air. It was more than loss. It was a reminder of the uncertain future. The room buzzed with quiet sobs and murmurings of shared regret. He placed a comforting hand on Lucy's shoulder, squeezing gently, trying to draw strength from her vulnerability. Suddenly, Mark, the boy who had expressed his fears earlier, stood up again, visibly shaken. What if we weren't just meant to remember her in sadness?" His voice cracked but grew steadier. "What if we could honor her by continuing her legacy? She believed in us, even when we didn't believe in ourselves." A flicker of hope ignited at his words. Ethan felt the current shift. These students had the power to transform the sorrow surrounding Mrs. Davis's untimely departure into something constructive. They could celebrate her memory, not just in grieving, but in showing the world what she had imparted to them. The crowd began to nod, whispers turning into chatter. Ideas sparked and rolled like waves washing onto the shore. "Let's create something, a memorial or an event to celebrate her teaching," Clara suggested, her eyes shining with renewed determination. "Yeah, a scholarship fund or a yearly day to remember how she inspired us," another voice called out, and slowly a chorus of agreement filled the room. Ethan could hardly believe the shift. From a moment of profound sorrow, hope began to rise like a phoenix from ashes. The fragmented pieces of their grief were meticulously being woven into a shared mission. It was the kind of moment he'd read about, but never thought he'd witness himself. As the ideas began to flourish, Ethan felt his heart swell. They might just discover that the truths they feared wouldn't break them. Instead, they could usher in a wave of transformation. Just as he felt the surge of optimism start to take hold, the door creaked open, and in walked one of the teachers from the school, an expression of seriousness etched on her face. I need to speak to all of you about some important decisions moving forward. Ethan's stomach twisted. What had shifted so suddenly? What new reality awaited them that would test this newfound resolve? The room fell silent once again, a palpable tension settling over them. What would the teacher say? Would their hopes be dashed before they even took flight? As the teacher stepped forward, the gravity of the moment electrified the air in the community center. Silence fell like a soft blanket, wrapping every heart in the room with uncertainty. Ethan's pulse quickened. Was this new twist a threat to the fragile unity they had just begun to build? Everyone, the teacher began, her voice steady but soft. I wanted to thank you all for coming together. It means a lot to see this community rally after such a difficult event. She glanced around, eyes resting on Clara, Lucy, and Mark, acknowledging their bravery. But, she hesitated slightly, drawing in a deep breath, we need to talk about how we'll handle Mrs. Davis's memorial and what steps we'll take to ensure her legacy continues. Ethan's anxiety flared. Hadn't they already begun to think about those very things? Had their bright ideas been insufficient in light of the gravity of this loss? Due to unforeseen circumstances, the school board feels it's best to hold a formal service, the teacher continued, and they've decided to have that service next Friday, inviting the entire community. They would also like us to lead a discussion about Mrs. Davis's impact. Her words hung in the air, a double-edged sword cutting through the room's delicate optimism. Some students exchanged worried glances, while Ethan felt a sinking sensation in his chest. Would this formal service overshadow the vibrant, intimate connections they had just begun to forge? But the teacher's voice lifted, quickening Ethan's pulse again. This is where you all come in. I believe Mrs. Davis would want you to reflect on her teaching in a way that's personal and heartfelt. I want you to decide how to honor her, through stories, projects, anything that brings your voices to this event. If you share what she meant to you, I believe it can not only honor her, but also heal our community. Ethan felt a rush of relief wash over him. There it was, the chance to channel their sorrow into something beautiful, something that would not just remember, but celebrate. The classroom silence broke, and murmurs turned into excited chatter, as students started discussing ideas in small huddles. All right, we can create panels of our stories, picture boards, Clara exclaimed, her eyes alight with inspiration. We could even bake Mrs. Davis's favorite cookies for the event. Yes, Lucy's voice chimed in. And we can ask for more stories. They should be shared like light through the clouds. Ethan couldn't help but smile. This was it. Instead of withdrawing from the storm, they were daring to dance in the rain, embracing the power of connection and creativity to remember the woman who had inspired them all. But amid the excitement, Ethan still felt a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. Was this path they chose truly enough? Would they be able to reflect the depth of their feelings when it mattered most? The teacher, watching the enthusiasm bloom, moved toward Ethan. I can see you're passionate about this too, Ethan. Remember, we need your leadership to pull these ideas together. This is an opportunity for you all to express what you wanted to, just like your reenactment, but now with a personal and emotional touch. Ethan felt the weight of that responsibility. His heart pounded as he took a deep breath, the enormity of everything hanging before him. Yeah, I'll do it, he finally said, feeling a powerful surge of determination wash over him. We'll work together to make this meaningful. As the crowd erupted in applause, a wave washed over Ethan. This was their moment. They were rising together like a phoenix from the ashes, transforming grief into hope. Just then, a sudden gust of wind rattled the windows again, sending a tremor through the walls of the gym. Outside, the storm bellowed its rage, but in that moment, it felt like a distant echo, no match for the vibrant energy pulsing through everyone inside. They were connected now, each voice contributing a story to the tapestry of their community. The storm that had once threatened to tear them apart was now merely a reminder of their resilience. As Ethan looked at their faces, bright with ideas and renewed purpose, he felt something shift deep within him.
They were ready. The dynamic between laughter and tears, healing and remembrance intertwined beautifully, and Ethan understood now that facing fears together would only strengthen their bond. "Let's get to work, everyone," he called out, his voice filled with fervor. "We've got stories to tell and a legacy to honor. Let's show all of Pine Hollow how strong we are when united." And as they dove into preparations, Ethan realized this was just the beginning of their journey. Together, they would face every storm, inside and out. They would weave history into hope, transforming every challenge into a story meant to be told. This time, when he looked outside at the swirling snow and rain, he felt bulls and filled with anticipation. They were ready for whatever came next, armed with courage, compassion, and connection. This wasn't just an ending. It was a magnificent new chapter, a lasting legacy that would echo throughout Pine Hollow for generations to come. As they united under a shared purpose, hope ignited flames in their hearts brighter than the fiercest storm. Now was the time for action, to honor their past while
courageously embracing their future. Because as they discovered together, sometimes in the depths of winter, you cultivate the sweetest blossoms of hope. And you, dear friends, you need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories that inspire transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second to share this video. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and bring more heat to our community. Also, I want you to comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let's spread the love. Share this with at least 5 friends who need to see these incredible transformations. Your support is everything.